InvestorIdeas.com podcast.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Cannabis Swiss Corporation, trading on the OTC as CSUI, a fully licensed cannabis cultivation and distribution company in Switzerland for recreational tobacco products and medical CBD oils. And the company's products are laboratory tested to ensure that the end users have access to a standardized, safe, and consistent product. And Cannabis Swiss Corporation currently sells via a distribution network of Swiss retailers and online shops under the retail brand Alpine Cannabis. So in today's podcast, we're going to be looking at a few public and private company announcements from the last couple of days. So looking at Hyosynth, a sustainable biotechnology company, the Valens Company Incorporated, trading on the TSX as VLNS and the OTCQX as VLNCF. NDVA Limited, trading on the TSX Venture as NDVA and the OTCQX as NDVAF, as well as ANC Incorporated, Alberta's first licensed microcultivator. So starting today with Hyosynth, a sustainable biotechnology company that announced taking the top spot from global competitors by making the first ever sale of CBD produced and extracted from yeast. Now, Hyosynth produces CBD through a yeast fermentation process without the need for traditional cultivation and extraction from cannabis or hemp plants. And the material was produced using Hyosynth's proprietary yeast under contract from a fermentation partner. And this production marks a key commercialization achievement and positions the company to move towards large-scale commercial manufacturing. Now, Hyosynth was among the first companies to specialize in cannabinoid production by fermentation, also called cellular agriculture or biosynthesis, a field that has seen more than 500 million in investments over the last 3 years. Now, cannabinoids that are produced this way are expected to provide huge benefits in cost, quality, and sustainability versus traditional plant cultivation and extraction. And Hyosynth's platform allows it to produce CBD, one of only 2 natural cannabinoids in clinically proven products. And the company's primary competitors have recently announced works with CBG and their precursor to CBD, which is easier to make but lacks an established market. Now, Hyosynth's fermentation process takes less than 1 week to complete, making it 12 times faster than production by cannabis or hemp plants, and fermentation is a traditional manufacturing process for pharmaceutical, food, and cosmetics products. A widely known example of this process is the production of insulin by bacteria. And unlike other production methods, fermentation results in natural bio-based products and final ingredients that are pesticide and GMO free. Now, Hyosynth's technology can be scaled through partnerships with fermentation facilities that already exist worldwide. And with these product features, Hyosynth is set to reshape the industry for major cannabinoids like THC and CBD, and even rare cannabinoids that are found in very low levels in cannabis and hemp plants. Our head start in this area was a key factor to us being first to reach commercial sale of CBD and CBDA produced from a reliable and sustainable source, said Kevin Chen, the CEO of Hyosynth. We've assembled an excellent team of researchers, built an IP portfolio across many cannabinoids, and our production and sale achievement is one of the last checkpoints before we make our solution available worldwide. Now, the company is currently in the process of scaling up its CBD and CBDA production process to industrial volumes and aims to deliver scaled production by 2021. So now we actually have one of the first companies to actually sell their first yeast-produced CBD. So obviously I've talked about biosynthesized CBD and THC for a while now, especially CBD and CBG. You're seeing a lot of companies focus on these 2 cannabinoids right now, at least looking at it from a pharmacological standpoint, where they're companies who are doing this from yeast as opposed to from the actual hemp or cannabis plants. And really, there seems to be more and more a little bit of an internal debate within the industry of the synthetics versus the naturally occurring plant compounds. Obviously, there's a huge agricultural side that's very on board with only using actual natural plant extracts. And I think a lot of consumers, even for the industry, expect this to come from natural plant extracts. A lot of the reasons why consumers are coming to the cannabis industry and moving away from the pharmaceutical industry is to move away from synthetic compounds. That being said, especially for CBD products, there is a lot of long-term potential with these yeast-produced CBD molecules. The overall sort of skepticism right now, though, comes from the entourage effect, and it comes from the efficacy of these biosynthesized CBD molecules. So that's really where you're going to need to see these products come out into market. You're going to need to see certain tests, and you're going to need to see certain efficacy data come out to the market on how these products actually interact with consumers. And we've seen a lot of unfortunate results in the past when it comes to synthetic cannabinoids and synthetic cannabis. There hasn't been the best track record for those products, and there hasn't been the best reception from both consumers and the scientific community in some regards. So it will be interesting to see how this develops and how we see this market expand, if we're going to see a huge boom of synthetic CBD come onto the market and yeast controlled cannabis or yeast produced cannabinoids coming onto the market. That is going to change price points, and that's also going to change product formulations very quickly. But I think there is still going to be a little bit of skepticism and holdback from a lot of these companies who really pride themselves on branding that they are using naturally occurring compounds. And I think that you're going to have a difficulty trying to sell more pharmaceutical-based cannabinoids and cannabinoid-based products to consumers, at least in the North American market right now, when so many companies, that's the main selling point, is that this is natural, this is coming from the ground, coming from the farm that people can go and see and interact with. And more that's becoming the selling point for a lot of these premium cultivators and a lot of the premium products that are out there, and consumers are starting to be aware of this. So I've sort of talked about this a lot of different times, of the sort of two factions of the cannabis industry that are starting to splinter away from each other, the pharmaceutical side and the agricultural side. And I think this year you're starting to see that split become more prominent, and you're going to see the industry sort of segment itself into two different sections, I think, moving forward, where you will have lots of products and companies that are focused on the synthetic side of the market, where there's going to be lots of cost incentives, lots of even testing incentives when it comes to showing that your products aren't going to have heavy metals or any pesticides or anything. That's a very easy choice for a lot of these companies to deal with. But again, in the long term, I think that you're going to lose a lot of the potency due to the entourage effect. And again, you're going to have some skepticism from consumers. Next, looking at the VLNS company, who announced the launch of a new higher potency cannabis-infused beverage, the Summit 10, under a white label agreement with A1 Cannabis Company, which is a subsidiary of Iconic Brewing. Now, Summit 10, a lemonade iced tea containing 10 milligrams of THC, is the third addition to the VLNS Company and A1's line of cannabis-infused beverages, and it's available in a 355 milliliter bottle. And Summit 10 differentiates from the previously released 2.5 milligram THC-infused Summit beverage with a flavor profile of citrus and black tea and a higher potency level. And Summit 10 was developed using the Source by VLNS emulsion technology and is designed for consumers seeking a higher dosage product with faster observed onset times and reduced offset times, housed in a reusable bottle for convenient and controlled consumption. Now, earlier this year, the VLNS Company introduced its first line of cannabis-infused beverages in partnership with A1 Cannabis, the Basecamp, a CBD-forward iced tea, and Summit, a THC-forward citrus-flavored water. And both have quickly gained popularity in the Canadian cannabis-infused beverage market, receiving acclaim for their differentiated taste and customizable dosing for the industry and consumers alike. As anticipated, in addition to A1's cannabis-infused beverage line, we bring the Summit 10 to the Canadian market, a reimagined THC-forward formulation with more potency and differentiated taste, but with the same quality consumers have come to flavor in Summit, said Tyler Robson, the Chief Executive Officer of the VLNS Company. As the Canadian cannabis-infused beverage market matures, it's our commitment to continue to innovate and differentiate from our partners using the Source by VLNS, but also reinvent trusted products that offer customizable experiences in various potency levels and taste profiles to meet a wide range of consumer preferences. And we're thrilled to launch the Summit 10 as part of our continued collaboration with A1 Cannabis to introduce new products and increase our collective market share in the rapidly growing beverage segment in Canada. Now, Summit 10 is expected to first launch in mid-October in Alberta, online at select retailers, with British Columbia and Ontario to follow shortly after. And the VLNS Company and A1 Cannabis also expect to release a zero-sugar Summit 10 beverage this fall. So the VLNS Company coming out with new beverages, and I do like that they're focusing on differentiation with flavor and potency. I think that those are two things that you've seen a lot of these companies who have been a little bit slower to get their products to market. They only have maybe one or two options available, and it's pretty much a CBD or a THC option with the same potency levels and even sometimes the same flavor profiles. Whereas I do think that now that this beverage market is starting to develop, again, in some of the larger population provinces, so BC and Ontario, you still don't have as many SKUs available as I think most people would prefer, but we are starting to see that most retail cannabis dispensaries now have a pretty decent fridge full of beverages, and now you're starting to see, again, a lot of the differentiation start to come into play, so flavor, potency, style of packaging, all of that, and you're starting to see consumers actually choose and differentiate between these products. So I do think that for Valens and for any of these beverage companies, this is going to be the next phase, is you're going to start to see them releasing multiple flavors, multiple potency and dosage levels, and as well, probably you're going to start to see a little bit more of an interchange between the CBD and THC profiles. So probably have a 2-to-1, a 1-to-1, things like that. Whereas right now you're really just seeing THC or CBD. You're not seeing a good mix or sort of blending of the two. So it's definitely showing where things are going to be going. And I would expect that most of the companies that have launched beverages over the last couple of months are going to be launching new differentiated versions of those same beverages over the next coming months. And you're going to start to see now, similarly to what we've seen in any drink industry or every beverage sector, where it's not going to be just that singular product, but you're going to need to have a wide variety of variations of that same product and flavors and, again, potency levels. Which is quite exciting for the consumers because they can actually start now doing a little bit of at-home testing with which potency levels work the best for them, which products and strains have the biggest impact on them, either health-wise or high-wise, and also which flavors are sort of blending with the terpenes and giving the best overall effect. Next, moving on to NDVA Limited, who announced that the first 3 flavors of Wana Sour Gummies have shipped to Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. There is a mango sativa, 5 milligrams of THC per gummy, a watermelon hybrid, 5 milligrams of THC per gummy, and a strawberry lemonade, which has 5 milligrams of THC and CBD per gummy. And they're expected to be in stores this week. We're thrilled to have shipped Wana Sour Gummies to Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Yukon territory, increasing Wana's presence for 4 provinces and 1 territory, said Neil Marotta, the President and Chief Executive Officer of NDVA. In less than a month since Wana Sour Gummies were launched, we've seen a steady growth in popularity for these vegan and gluten-free cannabis edibles. Of-age Canadians across the country are experiencing firsthand why Wana Brands is the #1 edible brands in the U.S. Now, Wana Sour Gummies are made with pectin, not gelatin, which gives the gummies a great texture in addition to making them vegan, and all gummies are handcrafted using a shelf-stable recipe so they won't melt. And following the first 3 flavors that have been released, the company intends to bring additional flavors to market, such as blueberry, strawberry, Japanese citrus, pomegranate blueberry. And Wana Brands is the #1 edible brands in the U.S. with more dollars sold than any other brand, according to the BDSA 2019 brand share report. So similarly to what I was talking about with beverages, now you're starting to see with edibles as well. And again, you're seeing that they're not just launching a couple of different gummies with different flavors, but they're also offering different ones with a different blend of THC and CBD and different dosage levels. And again, I do think that this is going to be more and more what you can expect to see from most of these companies that are in the Cannabis 2.0 product space right now, is that they're going to be launching a lot of varieties of the same products they already have on the market. And that's going to hopefully give companies as well as retailers a better understanding of which flavors, which potency levels, which styles and formats consumers are actually looking for. And hopefully, I would expect over the next 6 months to a year, you'll start to see access to that data of which type of brands and styles and formats consumers are really driving towards, as opposed to, again, right now that this industry is still fairly new. Mostly it's just anything that's on shelves is selling pretty well. You're not seeing any of these Cannabis 2.0 products really falter that hard, but you are starting to see a few of them jump ahead of the rest. They're starting to be a little bit more dominant, and it is the ones who are offering more variety, more flavors, more potency levels, and have gotten their products to shelves faster. So lastly today, ANC Incorporated, Alberta's first licensed microcultivator, announced the continuation of their national expansion with approval to supply seeds and commercial and home growers in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and most recently, New Brunswick. Since 2017, ANC Cannabis is forming a company built around the belief that we can create quality product that's accessible to everyone while also providing educational support and services to our consumers, said Terrence Redder, the ANC Incorporated VP of Business Development and Marketing. He also added, at ANC, we're motivated by the passion for quality product and support for the entire growing and cultivation community. And we believe that everyone, no matter their background or experience, should be able to grow their own quality cannabis plants. Now, ANC is the first and foremost a genetics company committed to developing the highest quality products possible, and ANC is currently focused on seeds for the consumer and commercial market with plans to release flower for retail sale in late fall of 2020. Now, the company has been approved for processing license so they can process their own product, and the company also has additional long-term plans to sell flower, likely in the form of pre-rolls sourced from the genetics that they will be offering consumers as seed stock. Now, this approach will allow consumers to experience the product before deciding on a cultivar, and this will also be part of the larger program the company calls the Know Before You Grow service, which will also include access to an online platform offering genetic-specific tips for home growers. And ANC Incorporated's VP of Research and Quality Control, Thomas Facchiola, is excited to provide answers for all the home growers' questions. ANC continues to expand at a rapid pace, and we're elated to have reached the milestone of national distribution spanning across Canada from the West Coast in BC to the East Coast in New Brunswick, said ANC Incorporated President Clayton Bourdanuc, adding, "This is just the beginning for ANC." And ANC has currently developed hundreds of different genetics that are ready for the recreational market, including Fruity Hoops, Pink Lemonade, Pineapple Express, Power Kush, Triple Scoop. The list goes on. Each strain offers a different genetic makeup with a wide range of THC concentration and different flowering periods appropriate for the variety of climates for indoor and outdoor growers alike. And this is really something that we're just starting to see now in the Canadian market as the seed program starting to come into effect at most of the recreational dispensaries. You're starting to see more and more seed producers, and I do really like ANC Incorporated's entire business strategy there of the Know Before You Grow, having their products out on the market in pre-rolls for people to be able to try and then be able to order those seeds, grow that plant for themselves. I do think that the seed and home grow market has been extremely undervalued within the cannabis space. It's something that a lot of growers and even people within the industry sort of dismiss a lot of the time, but there is still more and more people coming on board to growing their own plants, even just as a hobby plant, one or two each year. And I do think that overall there is enough money to be made off flowers and genetics, especially if you go with this policy of having the ability to educate and also provide information on all these strains and genetics moving forward. I think that there's going to be maybe a few more companies that start popping up into this space, but I do like ANC's entire setup right now. And I would hope that more companies try to follow this type of overall business model where, again, you do have a couple of different verticals to focus on, not just the overall genetics for consumers, but also for the commercial market and also to release retail flower to sort of basically market your entire brand. I think that that's a very interesting policy, and I hope to see more companies like this. And again, I would expect to see that the seed market, especially once you start getting into having clones available for sale, I think that's going to see a huge boom. And then you're going to start to see other areas or other businesses start looking into this sector. I know there's already been some speculation of certain big box stores selling cannabis clones as well within Canada. And eventually that could become a reality. And I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity, like I said, within the seed and home grow market that's been a little bit overlooked. But obviously some companies are paying close attention to that. That's all for today's podcast, and once again, today's podcast is sponsored by Cannabis Swiss Corporation, trading on the OTC as CSUI, a fully licensed cannabis cultivation and distribution company in Switzerland for recreational tobacco products and medical CBD oils. The company's products are laboratory tested to ensure that the end users have access to a standardized, safe, and consistent product. And Cannabis Swiss Corp currently sells via a distribution network of Swiss retailers and online shops under the retail brand Alpine Cannabis. That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.